Hello and welcome to this, the first part out of, I don't know how many, as many as it takes, series of tutorials for completing the assignment which is known as the Word Personal Resume Assignment. So, first of all, let me start reading from the instructions, which of course you can find in your D2L shell under, Microsoft Office. It's usually right after the last unit of Word, as the last thing you do in Word. Your resume, I'm reading from here, your resume is one of the most important documents you'll create. It's critical to have an accurate, up-to-date version at hand at all times. Did you know that recruiters and human resource personnel look at a resume for no more than 30 seconds? I personally think that number is way too optimistic. It's probably more like 6 or 7 seconds, and sometimes less, before deciding to contact or to move on to the next candidate. Not to mention, more and more today, applicants are scanned by an AI algorithm that will reject and rank your resume very low if it doesn't meet the, and here's the keyword, format expected. Almost everything we're going to talk about is going to be about the correct format that's going to help your resume get through those scannings of AI and recruiters to actually be considered for its content. So unfortunately, we can, it might not be what we want to have, but format comes before content in the case of a resume. Step 1. Read this carefully. It has great guidelines and advice. This link, I'm not going to click on it. It takes you to Indeed.com. It has some great tips, some great insights, and some great examples of resume formats. There's different formats, and there's different, for different industries. It gives you some great advice. But this is just something you could do in your own time. Step number 2. Then, before you start writing, do some internet research on your own to look at sample resumes. I'm reading from this. Sample resumes and resume formatting for the type of job you wish to apply for in your own industry. What I'm trying to say is that as much as format matters, format is not the same for different industry. A resume for, let's say, a software developer in the IT industry is not going to look the same as far as its parts or even its order, the same as a resume for, let's say, healthcare or for graphic design. So do your research simply, whatever your major is, whatever your pathway is, do a little bit of research just by, using Google, using, whatever you use for research. Let's say if you are aspiring to be a graphic designer, look for, sample resumes for graphic design and so on. Not to copy them, but just to see what the industry is expecting and, if you want to fit into that industry. Finally, we get into the most important step of all, which is to create this. Using Microsoft Word, you're going to create a personal resume. Unfortunately, I have to start with a list of things not to do. Do not use the templates that come with Microsoft Word. I'm recording this video on a Mac. I'm going to be using Word on a Mac, but I assure you that everything we're going to do is exactly the same way in the same place on Microsoft on Windows. When I say the starting screen for most people is going to look, like this. Now, there are many templates to choose from. Some of them are even resumes, like, there's cover letters, polished resume. All of those are very tempting, but don't, because it's not going to meet the right format. They're very hard to edit. It's kind of like a take it or leave it, but also they reflect very, very badly on your level of professionalism if you use a template. You're going to start from a blank document, which is what I'm doing right now. Create. Blank document. Then going back to the requirements, Do not use, and I know this is very tempting nowadays, on the web, there's even apps like that are resume writing services. Just, type your info and then we will, format the resume for you. Don't. It needs to be 100% created by you, and using any of those services will be considered plagiarism, because that's kind of the definition of plagiarism, saying you did something when you actually didn't and someone or something did it for you. Don't use any other application other than the installed desktop version of Microsoft Word, not the online version, not any of its competitors like Google Docs or Apple Pages or OpenOffice. It needs to be Word installed on a computer. I want it to look original. It doesn't have to look fancy, but it cannot look similar in any way to the SimNet assignment that we did. This is true for some courses, such as the Richelle Wilkinson one. I want you to make it your own. In some classes, we do the Richelle Wilkinson one, in some we don't. In any case, if we did anything in class that has to do with a resume, your resume needs to look different. Not like a save as and change, a few names and stuff. After all of these, if your resume can be easily recognizable as based on a template or on a class exercise, I will have to deduct anywhere from 10 to 30 points, even if it meets all the other requirements, because it wouldn't be 100% yours. So after all this list of all the things not to do, let's start with a do. Start from a blank document, and I want you to save it as the file format is going to be a Word document, and a file name is going to be your last name _ resume. So I'm going to pretend that my name is John Smith, and I'm going to go File Save. On Windows, of course, the File tab is here. On Mac, the File menu is up here, but Save As is Save As. The dialog may look a little different on Windows. I recommend absolutely not saving on online locations, but saving to the Documents folder, or not the desktop, or the Downloads folder of your computer. And the most important thing here, it shows me the extension, because I set my computer to reveal extensions. Even if it didn't, the important thing is that the file format, and this is going to appear on both Mac and Windows, is Word format, whether the .docx is visible or not. The name needs to be my last name, let's say Smith, _ resume. Okay? And I'm going to save it, and it's going to say saved to my Mac. On Windows, it's going to say somewhere around here, saved to my PC or something like that. Going back to the requirements, the margins before we even start needs to be 0.5 or ½ an inch on all sides. Happens to be a very easy preset called Narrow, which I find under Layout, Margins, Narrow, and of course now it's ½ an inch on each side, and I'm going to save, of course. Then what it says in the requirements, that regular text, such as paragraphs, bullets, the style known as normal, needs to be somewhere between 10 to 12 points and consistent. So all the paragraph text and bullets needs to have the same font size. Here's what I would do. Here's my biggest recommendation. I'm just going to type blah, 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 whatever. We're going to delete it. Just so I can select it, just so I can go to home, and right now it's designated as normal. And I'm going to say, you know what? Right now it's size 12. Let me make it size 10 so I can fit more things into one page. And from this point on, you can, we're going to talk about fonts later on, but generally, resumes use very common fonts, so they will open on every computer. You can choose any font you want, but I recommend choosing nice readable fonts such as Calibri or Corbel or Arial or one of those. But you're free to use any font you want, because as you'll see in the end, you'll also be submitting it as a PDF, and that will embed the font that you used. But use something easy to read. In any case, let's say that you chose this font, this size, for what's going to be most of your normal text. What we will do is, just like we did in class, I'm going to go under the Home tab to the style called Normal, right-click on it, and update Normal to match selection. Like telling Word, hey, look, every time I use normal text, it's going to look like this. Now I can actually delete the text. So I took care of it. And it can always be changed later. But at least from now on, anything like a normal paragraph that's not a heading or anything like that is going to have that style. Number 4, heading 1 and heading 2s need to be somewhere between 13 to 18 points. You have the freedom to do that, and consistent. Since we don't have a heading 1 yet, I'm going to save this. I'm going to set this once we write our first heading. But they need to be consistent, which means all your heading 1s need to look the same, all your heading 2s need to look the same, and it's very important to set certain things to heading 1 and heading 2, as we're about to see. And finally, we can start writing the resume. Revise, edit, proofread your resume so it is professional in appearance and appropriate based on your background and the industry you wish to work on. Please proofread. For some companies, even one typo is going to immediately mean like rejection. And we're going to talk about it in class, or if we have talked about it, it might not seem fair, but nowadays a typo doesn't necessarily indicate education. It indicates professionalism, because it's so easy to fix them that if you didn't, that means that you're not really a professional. Research what may legally be on a resume in your industry. For example, in many industries, will not even consider your resume if you have a photo. But in other industry, it is common to have a photo. So research your industry and find what's legal, what's conventional, what's customary. And the same thing is for icons and trademark logos. I can tell you that in this resume, to get a perfect A, you don't need either. You don't need photos, and you don't need icons. The only icons you might have are for, like bullet lists. So let's get started. Start with your full legal name formatted as title, and below it, your contact information. So let's say that I'm pretending right now. You're not going to pretend you're going to write your real name, but I'm pretending, that I'm a student, that my name is John Smith. And I'm going to select this text, and in the Home tab, in the gallery of styles, if I see the style called title, I'll use it. Right now I don't, so I open the gallery. On Windows, it's going to be like an arrow here to open the gallery. On Mac, it's on the bottom center. In any case, I got a gallery, and here's the style called title. And now my name is a title. Save. Now, you may say, but I didn't want it to look that big. I want it to look, maybe not this color. We're going to take care of it once we have some content. For right now, we're dealing with format and not necessarily cosmetics. Next, under that, your address in 2 lines, then your phone, then email. See this example. So I'm going to use, something similar. Of course, you put your real address, enter. There's going to be regular text. I'm going to write, let's say that I live on 123 Elm Street in Anytown, Florida, and the zip is 33345. Then my phone number is 954 blah 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 blah. If you don't want your teacher to know your real phone number, you can make up a fake one, because we're just talking about format. For searching for a real job, you can always replace it with the real thing. And you can write the phone number in any format that you want. It could be like, with a dash like this and so on. And then email, same thing. I'm going to, pretend that my email is jsmith@gmail.com. Okay? The other thing that you might see at this point is that you might have like gaps or line spacings between those that already take up too much space. I already fixed it, but let me show you what I would do. I would highlight all those lines. I would go to, if this was Windows, in the Home tab right here, there would be, we used it before, the paragraph expander or the paragraph dialog little icon. It looks like a little arrow. On Mac, I'm going to go to the Format menu and choose Paragraph. And in both cases, it opens the same one. See how right now spacing is 0 before and 0 after, which is good. If it was any bigger, a lot of times the default is like 12, it would look something like this and it would take too much. So what I would do is probably select this. Again, on Windows, I would click the icon that would show up right here on Home Paragraph, and on Mac, Format Paragraph. And I would go not for 0, because I do want paragraphs to have a little bit after them. I would go for probably like 6. Line spacing, single, or we could just write 1. And after, this is my recommended settings. And I'm going to click OK, and that looks, good enough for, taking up the, not too much space, not too little space. Since we changed something about the normal style, I'm going to go to the normal style in my home, right-click on it again, and update normal to match selection. So all my normal text is now updated also to include the spacing. Next. Notice that in my example, the email shows up like a link. It's not a requirement, but if you do want it to look like a link, the trick is really simple. You to put your mouse right after the last letter and you press space and it turns into a link. Later on, when we apply a theme, it might cancel that, but it's not a requirement anyway. I'm going to save. Enter. And the next section that is required, so I have this, I have this. Don't worry about fonts and colors. We're going to, make it look prettier once we have some content. The next section is objective, formatted as a heading 1. You can also call it profile, as we've seen in some of our class exercises, or summary statement, or goal. Look at other resumes from your field and see what other people are doing in your field. In my field, they like to call it objective. So I'm going to use the word objective. The important thing is that it needs to be a heading 1. So I'm going to select it and I'm going to make it a heading 1. Again, the way it looks might not be to your liking, but it's designated. Its meta information is that it's a heading 1. So any AI or digital agent reading it will know that's a section called objective and not just a paragraph with the word objective. Then, what are you going to write there? This needs to be one paragraph, at least 40 words, but no more than 65, that states your goal, summarizes what you're looking for in your career, at least for the near future. See this example, but yours has to look different and, of course, word it differently. So look, in this example, it's like, I'm an aspiring college law student whose goal is to become a well-educated and accomplished lawyer, ready to apply my knowledge, and so on. I'm going to just, make up just, random words. You, of course, are going to spend a little more time wording this. Do not use AI to word it for you, because then it might be caught as AI generated, and then, it reflects very badly on you. If you're like asking yourself, how do I know that it's, 40 to 65 words? You highlight it, and it tells you right here, I got 58 words. Looks good to me. Might be even a little too much. And it's a paragraph. I'm going to save. I'm going to stop this first part of the tutorial here, and I will meet you in part 2 of the tutorial when we start our next section, which is going to be the work experience.